The train chugged along, a metal snake winding through the Wild West. Inside, passengers played cards, read newspapers, or simply gazed out at the passing scenery. But on the roof, clinging precariously to the luggage rack, was Black Bart. Bart wasn't like other train robbers. He never fired his gun, never yelled, and always left the passengers with enough money for a hot meal. Some even said he had a twinkle in his eye, like he was playing a game. Tonight, his target was the express car, rumored to be carrying a shipment of gold. He silently dropped onto the roof of the express car, his boots making barely a sound. With nimble fingers, he picked the lock, slipped inside, and was met with the glittering sight of gold bars stacked high. It was more than he'd ever seen in one place. He quickly filled his sack, careful not to make too much noise. Just as he was about to leave, he heard voices. 2 guards were approaching, laughing about a poker game. Bart ducked behind a stack of gold, his heart pounding. The guards entered, their laughter fading as they surveyed the gold. "Everything looks secure," one said. "Let's get back to our game." Bart waited until they were gone before quietly slipping back out onto the roof. He lowered himself down the side of the train, landing softly on the ground as the train sped away. He disappeared into the darkness, the sack of gold heavy on his shoulder. As he made his way back to his small cabin hidden in the woods, a sense of unease settled over him. He didn't enjoy stealing, but he knew he had no other choice. The gold wasn't for him. It was for Lily. He pictured her pale face and weak smile, and his resolve hardened. He would do anything to save her. He had to get her the best doctor, the special medicine. He just had to. He was Black Bart, the notorious train bandit, but he was also a brother, and his sister's life was all that mattered. The cabin was small, just one room with a fireplace and a bed. But it was home, a safe haven for Lily. She lay in bed, her face pale and thin. Her breathing was shallow, and a weak cough rattled in her chest. Bart knelt beside her, gently stroking her hair. "How are you feeling, Lily Bug?" he asked, his voice soft. Lily managed a weak smile. "A little better, Bart. Thank you." Bart's heart ached. He hated seeing her like this, so fragile. "The doctor will be here soon. He's the best, Lily. He'll make you all better." Lily coughed again, a small, painful sound. "Don't worry about me so much, Bart. You work so hard." "It's nothing," Bart said, forcing a smile. "You're worth more than all the gold in the world." He didn't tell her where the money for the doctor was really coming from. He couldn't bear to burden her with that knowledge. Lily closed her eyes, exhaustion evident on her face. Bart stood up and walked over to the window, looking out at the forest. He knew he was walking a dangerous path. Stealing from the train wasn't just wrong, it was risky. But he felt like he had no other choice. He remembered when Lily first got sick. They had gone to the local doctor, but he couldn't help. He said Lily needed a specialist, someone who knew about rare illnesses. But specialists cost money they didn't have. Bart had tried everything. He worked extra shifts at the sawmill, sold his prized horse, even considered asking for help from the townspeople. But it wasn't enough. The doctor said Lily's condition was getting worse, and she needed treatment soon. That's when Bart made his decision. He would become Black Bart, the train robber, to save his sister's life. He knew it was wrong, but he couldn't let Lily die. He would do anything for her, even if it meant risking his own life and freedom. He just hoped, prayed, that it would be enough. The next morning, the specialist arrived, a stern-looking man with a black bag. He examined Lily thoroughly, asking her questions and listening to her chest. Bart waited anxiously outside, pacing back and forth. Finally, the doctor emerged, his expression serious. "She's very weak, Mr. Bart," he said. "Her condition is worsening. She needs the medicine I prescribed as soon as possible." "I have the money," Bart said quickly, handing over a wad of bills. "Can you get it right away?" The doctor nodded. "I'll send for it immediately. It's a rare formula, and it has to be brought in from the city." Bart watched as the doctor left, a wave of relief washing over him. He had done it. He had gotten the money. Lily would get her medicine, and she would get better. But as the days turned into weeks, Lily's condition didn't improve as much as Bart had hoped. The medicine helped, but she was still weak and frail. The doctor said she needed more treatment, more expensive treatments. Bart knew what he had to do. He had to rob another train. He felt a pang of guilt. He hated stealing, and he hated the danger he was putting himself in. But he couldn't let Lily down. He owed it to her to do everything he could to save her life. He spent days planning his next heist, studying the train schedules and the security measures. He knew he had to be even more careful this time. The more he stole, the more attention he would attract. He also worried about the effect his actions were having on Lily. He tried to hide his stress and anxiety, but he knew she could sense something was wrong. He didn't want her to worry about him, but he couldn't tell her the truth. He was trapped in a web of lies and secrets, all for the sake of his sister. And he wondered if he was doing the right thing or if his actions would ultimately lead to even more pain and suffering. But he pushed those thoughts aside. He had a job to do, and he couldn't afford to let anything distract him. Lily's life depended on it. Bart continued his train robberies, each one more daring than the last. He became known throughout the territory as Black Bart, the gentleman bandit. He always left a calling card, a small, black feather, and a note apologizing for the inconvenience. The townsfolk started to whisper about him. Some feared him, but others admired his audacity and his strange code of honor. They noticed he never hurt anyone, and he only seemed to target the wealthy. Stories spread about him giving some of the stolen money to poor families in need, though no one could prove it. One day, Bart robbed a train carrying a wealthy businessman named Mr. Abernathy. Abernathy was furious, but Bart treated him with respect, even offering him a glass of water. Before leaving, Bart noticed Abernathy was carrying a locket with a picture of his own sick daughter. Bart hesitated, then quietly returned a portion of the stolen money. "For your daughter," he said, his voice barely a whisper. "I know what it's like to need help." Abernathy was stunned. He looked at Bart with a mixture of anger and understanding. He didn't say anything, but Bart knew he had made an impression. As Bart continued his robberies, he became more and more conflicted. He knew he was doing wrong, but he also knew he was saving Lily's life. He tried to justify his actions by telling himself he was only stealing from those who could afford it, and he was using the money for a good cause. But deep down, he knew that stealing was stealing, no matter the reason. He longed for the day when he could stop being Black Bart and go back to being just Bart, Lily's brother. But until Lily was healthy, he knew he had no choice. He would continue to rob trains, to risk his life and his freedom, all for the love of his sister. He just hoped that one day he could find a way to make amends for his actions and live a life of peace and honesty. But for now, he was Black Bart, the train robber and Lily's savior. The legend grew with each passing train, with each black feather left behind. In a dusty corner of the town saloon, Silas the Snake watched Bart's legend unfold. Silas was a cruel man with a heart as black as coal. He made his living by cheating and stealing, and he envied Black Bart's fame and fortune. "That bandit thinks he's so smart," Silas sneered to his accomplice, a hulking brute named Gus. "Stealing from the rich and playing hero. I'll show him what real stealing is." Silas had been tracking Bart for weeks, trying to figure out where he hid his loot. He knew Bart wasn't spending the money on himself. He lived a simple life in a small cabin outside of town. Silas suspected there was someone else involved, someone Bart was protecting. One night, Silas followed Bart as he rode out of town, disappearing into the woods. Silas kept his distance, careful not to be seen. He watched as Bart entered a small, dilapidated cabin. Silas crept closer, peering through a crack in the wall. He saw Bart tending to a young woman lying in bed. He heard them talking, their voices soft and tender. Silas realized the truth. The young woman was Bart's sister, and she was sick. The money Bart was stealing wasn't for himself. It was for her. A wicked grin spread across Silas's face. He had found Bart's weakness. He knew exactly how to get his hands on all that stolen money. He wouldn't just rob Bart. He would take everything from him, including his sister. "Gus," Silas whispered, "I have a plan that will make us richer than we ever dreamed." Silas spent the next few days gathering information about Lily and her condition. He learned about the doctor who was treating her, the special medicine she needed, and the isolation of their cabin. He planned his move carefully, knowing that he couldn't afford to make any mistakes. He knew that Black Bart was clever, But Silas believed he was even more cunning. He was ready to strike, to exploit Bart's love for his sister, and to claim all the stolen riches for himself. The stage was set for a showdown, a battle between a desperate brother and a heartless villain. The night was dark and stormy. Rain lashed against the windows of the cabin, and the wind howled through the trees. Lily lay asleep, her breathing. Come alone and bring all the money. If you try anything clever, or if you bring the law, your sister will pay the price. Silas and Gus dragged Lily out of the cabin and disappeared into the storm. Bart stood frozen, his heart pounding in his chest. He looked around the ransacked cabin, his mind filled with despair. He had to save Lily, but he knew Silas was dangerous and ruthless. He couldn't trust him to keep his word. He had to find a way to outsmart him, to rescue Lily without putting her in even more danger. He knew he couldn't go to the law. Silas would kill Lily if he suspected anything. He was on his own. He thought about the money he had risked his life to steal. It meant nothing to him now. All that mattered was Lily's safety. He would give Silas everything he wanted, if that's what it took to get her back. But he also knew that he couldn't just hand over the money and hope for the best. He had to have a plan. He had to find a way to turn the tables on Silas and bring him to justice. He spent the rest of the night pacing, thinking, and praying for a miracle. The storm raged outside, mirroring the turmoil in his heart. He was Black Bart, the train robber, but now he was just a desperate brother, willing to do anything to save his sister's life. The morning dawned gray and bleak, mirroring the despair in Bart's heart. He knew he couldn't face Silas alone. He needed help, but who could he trust? He thought about the townspeople, the ones who whispered about him with a mix of fear and admiration. But he couldn't risk involving them, not directly. Then he thought of old man Fitzwilliam, the train conductor. Fitzwilliam had always been kind to Bart, even before he became Black Bart. He was a fair and honest man, and Bart trusted him. He decided to take a chance. He found Fitzwilliam at the train station, preparing for his morning run. Bart approached him cautiously, his face etched with worry. "Fitzwilliam, I need your help," Bart said, his voice low and urgent. Fitzwilliam looked at Bart, his eyes filled with concern. "What's wrong, Bart? You look like you've seen a ghost." Bart hesitated, then poured out the whole story. Lily's illness, his decision to become a train robber, and Silas's kidnapping. Fitzwilliam listened patiently, his expression growing more somber with each word. When Bart finished, Fitzwilliam sighed. "That's a terrible situation, Bart. I always knew there was more to you than met the eye. Will you help me?" Bart pleaded. "I don't know what to do." Fitzwilliam thought for a moment, then nodded. "I will. You're a good man, Bart, even if you've made some bad choices. And Lily doesn't deserve this. But we have to be careful. Silas is a dangerous man." Bart felt a surge of hope. He wasn't alone anymore. "Thank you, Fitzwilliam. I don't know what I would do without you." "First," Fitzwilliam said, "we need to figure out what Silas is really after. It's not just the money, I suspect. He's got something else in mind." Fitzwilliam knew Silas, knew his greedy heart. He had something else planned. Together, Bart and Fitzwilliam began a plan. They knew they were up against a ruthless enemy, but they were determined to save Lily, no matter the cost. The train whistle blew in the distance, a mournful sound that echoed the uncertainty of the day ahead. The rescue plan had to work, or Lily would be lost forever. "Silas isn't just after the money, Bart. He wants something more," Fitzwilliam said, stroking his chin thoughtfully. "He's always been a greedy snake, but he's also ambitious. He probably wants to use the money to buy up the town, control everything. So, we can't just give him the money," Bart realized. "He'll take it and Lily, and then he'll destroy the town." "Exactly," Fitzwilliam agreed. "We need a plan that will get Lily back, stop Silas, and save the town." They spent hours discussing their options, poring over maps of the old mine and brainstorming ideas. Fitzwilliam knew the mine well. He had worked there as a young man before becoming a train conductor. He knew all the secret passages and hidden tunnels. "We can use the tunnels to our advantage," Fitzwilliam said, pointing to a spot on the map. "I know a back entrance that Silas probably doesn't know about. We can sneak in and surprise him." "But what about Gus? Bart asked. He's a big brute. I don't want anyone getting hurt. We'll have to be clever, Fitzwilliam said. We'll use Silas's greed against him. We'll make him think he's winning, and then we'll spring our trap. They decided that Bart would go to the mine at noon, as Silas had instructed, carrying a bag filled with rocks instead of money. Fitzwilliam would sneak into the mine through the back entrance and wait for the right moment to strike. It's risky, Fitzwilliam said, but it's our best chance. We have to be brave, Bart. For Lily and for the town. Bart nodded, his jaw set with determination. He was scared, but he knew he had to do this. He would face Silas, protect Lily, and save the town, even if it meant risking his own life. As the sun began to climb in the sky, Bart prepared for the confrontation. He checked his gun, his heart pounding in his chest. He knew that today would be the day that everything changed. He would either save Lily and become a hero, or he would lose everything and become a villain forever. The choice was his, and he was ready to fight. He wasn't just Black Bart, the train robber. He was a brother, a friend, and a protector. He was ready to face the snake. Noon arrived, and Bart, his face grim, approached the entrance to the old mine. The bag of rocks felt heavy in his hand, a constant reminder of the deception he was about to commit. He could hear the wind whistling through the mine shafts, a lonely and mournful sound. Silas and Gus were waiting for him, Lily standing between them, looking pale and weak. Silas grinned cruelly as Bart approached. Well, Silas said, his voice dripping with sarcasm. Look who decided to show up. I was beginning to think you didn't care about your sister. I brought the money, Bart said, his voice steady despite the fear churning in his stomach. Let's see it, Silas demanded, his eyes gleaming with greed. Bart held out the bag, and Silas snatched it from his hand, ripping it open. Rocks spilled onto the ground, and Silas's face contorted with rage. You tricked me, he roared. I didn't have a choice, Bart replied, his hand inching towards his gun. You wouldn't have let Lily go, even if I had given you the money. You're a fool, Bart, Silas snarled. He signaled to Gus, who grabbed Lily roughly. One wrong move, and she's dead, Silas threatened. Just then, a voice boomed from the darkness of the mine. I wouldn't be so sure about that, Silas. Fitzwilliam emerged from the shadows, a lantern in his hand. He pointed a gun at Silas. Let her go. Silas, Fitzwilliam commanded. It's over. A chaotic gunfight erupted, the sound echoing through the mine shafts. Bart used his knowledge of the mine to his advantage, ducking and weaving through the tunnels, firing at Silas and Gus. Fitzwilliam held his ground, providing cover for Bart. During the confusion, Lily managed to break free from Gus's grasp. She ran towards Bart, but Silas grabbed her again, holding a knife to her throat. This ends now, Bart, Silas shouted. Drop your gun, or I'll kill her. Bart froze, his heart pounding in his chest. He looked at Lily, her eyes pleading with him. He knew he had to make a choice. He could save her, but it might cost him his own life. Or he could try to fight, but that might put her in even more danger. What was he going to do? Bart slowly lowered his gun, his eyes never leaving Silas's. All right, Silas, you win, he said, his voice filled with resignation. Just let Lily go. Silas grinned triumphantly. That's more like it. Gus, take the gun. Gus lumbered forward, reaching for Bart's weapon. As Gus got close, Bart suddenly kicked out, sending Gus sprawling. He then grabbed a handful of dirt and threw it into Silas's face, blinding him momentarily. Silas screamed, dropping the knife. Lily scrambled away, running towards Fitzwilliam. Bart didn't waste any time. He tackled Silas, pinning him to the ground. A fierce struggle ensued, both men grappling for control. Silas was strong, but Bart was fueled by adrenaline and a burning desire to save his sister. Fitzwilliam, seeing his opportunity, knocked Gus unconscious with the butt of his gun. He then rushed over to help Bart subdue Silas. Together, they managed to overpower Silas, tying him up with rope. Lily ran to Bart, throwing her arms around him. You saved me, Bart, she cried. I told you I would, Bart said, hugging her tightly. What do we do with him now? Fitzwilliam asked, gesturing to the unconscious Gus and the bound Silas. We turn them over to the law, Bart replied. It's time for them to pay for their crimes. As they led Silas and Gus out of the mine, they were met by a group of townspeople, led by Mr. Abernathy, the businessman Bart had robbed weeks before. "We heard the gunshots," Abernathy said. "We came to help." Bart was stunned. He had expected the townspeople to fear him, to hate him. But instead, they had come to his rescue. "We know what you've been doing, Bart," Abernathy continued. "We know you've been stealing to save your sister, and we admire you for it." The townspeople cheered, their voices echoing through the hills. Bart looked at them, his heart filled with gratitude. He had come to this town as a criminal, but now he was being hailed as a hero. He had a lot to think about. Back at the cabin, Lily was resting comfortably. The doctor had come and given her a fresh dose of medicine. He seemed cautiously optimistic. "The ordeal was traumatic," he said to Bart, "but I believe she'll make a full recovery, now that she's safe and sound." Bart sat beside her, watching her sleep. He felt a weight lift from his shoulders. Silas and Gus were in jail, Lily was safe, and the townspeople were on his side. It was almost too good to be true. The next morning, Bart walked into town, ready to turn himself in. He found the sheriff's office and walked inside, his head held high. "Sheriff," Bart said, "I'm Black Bart. I'm here to confess to my crimes." The sheriff looked at Bart with a mixture of surprise and respect. "I know who you are, Bart," he said, "and I know why you did what you did." Just then, Mr. Abernathy and several other townspeople crowded into the sheriff's office. "We're here to speak on Bart's behalf," Abernathy said. "He only stole to save his sister's life. He's a good man, Sheriff. He doesn't deserve to go to jail." The townspeople began to voice their support for Bart, telling stories of his kindness and generosity. They spoke of how he had helped the poor, protected the weak, and always treated everyone with respect. The sheriff listened patiently, his expression thoughtful. He knew that Bart had broken the law, but he also knew that he had acted out of love and desperation. "I appreciate your support for Bart," the sheriff said, "but he still has to face the consequences of his actions." He turned to Bart. "I'm going to have to arrest you, Bart, but I promise to recommend leniency to the judge. I believe your story, and I believe that you deserve a second chance." Bart nodded, accepting his fate. He knew he had to pay for his crimes, but he was grateful for the support of the townspeople. He was no longer Black Bart, the train robber. He was just Bart, a man who had made mistakes but was willing to make amends. The townspeople surrounded him as the sheriff put the handcuffs on. He had never felt so loved and accepted in his life. The day of the trial arrived, and the courtroom was packed. The judge, a stern but fair man named Judge Thompson, looked down at Bart, his expression unreadable. The prosecutor presented his case, detailing Bart's crimes and emphasizing the seriousness of train robbery. He argued that Bart should be punished to the full extent of the law. Then, it was Bart's turn to speak. He stood up, his voice clear and steady. He told the judge about Lily's illness, his struggles to pay for her treatment, and his decision to become Black Bart. He spoke of his guilt and remorse, and his willingness to accept the consequences of his actions. After Bart spoke, Mr. Abernathy and several other townspeople took the stand, testifying to Bart's character and his selfless actions. They told the judge how he had helped the poor, protected the weak, and always treated everyone with kindness and respect. Fitzwilliam also testified, explaining how Silas had been planning to take over the town, and how Bart had saved them all. The judge listened intently to all the testimony, his expression growing more thoughtful with each word. He knew that Bart had broken the law, but he also knew that he had acted out of love and desperation, and that he had ultimately done more good than harm. After hearing all the evidence, Judge Thompson rendered his verdict. "Bart," he said, "you have admitted to committing serious crimes. However, I also believe that you acted out of love for your sister, and that you have shown genuine remorse for your actions. Furthermore, the townspeople have testified to your good character and your selfless deeds. Therefore, I'm going to show you leniency." The judge sentenced Bart to 1 year of community service, requiring him to work at the town's hospital, helping the sick and injured. He also ordered Bart to repay the money he had stolen, using his earnings from his community service. The townspeople erupted in cheers, their voices filled with joy and relief. Bart looked at them, his heart overflowing with gratitude. He had been given a second chance, and he was determined to make the most of it. He knew that he could never fully atone for his crimes, but he could dedicate his life to helping others and making the world a better place. He was no longer Black Bart, the train robber. He was just Bart, a man who had learned from his mistakes and was ready to start anew. And he had the love and support of the entire town to help him along the way. He would work hard to earn back their trust. Bart began his community service at the town hospital, working diligently to help the sick and injured. He cleaned rooms, delivered meals, and assisted the nurses with their duties. He treated everyone with kindness and compassion, earning the respect and gratitude of the patients and staff. Lily, now fully recovered, volunteered alongside him. Together, they made a difference in the lives of countless people, bringing hope and healing to those in need. The townspeople watched with pride as Bart transformed from notorious train robber into a respected member of the community. They saw that he was truly sorry for his past mistakes and that he was committed to making amends. Mr. Abernathy, the businessman Bart had robbed, became one of Bart's biggest supporters. He often visited the hospital, bringing gifts and offering encouragement. He even helped Bart repay the money he had stolen, offering him a job at his company. As the months passed, Bart's reputation as Black Bart faded into the past. He was now known as Bart, the kind and selfless man who had saved his sister's life and dedicated himself to serving others. One day, as Bart was walking home from the hospital, he noticed a group of children playing in the street. They were pretending to be Black Bart, robbing a train. Bart smiled. He knew that the legend of Black Bart would live on. But he hoped that people would also remember the story of Bart, the brother who had done everything he could to save his sister. He approached the children and introduced himself. He told them the story of Lily's illness and his decision to become a train robber. He explained that stealing was wrong, but that love and compassion were always right. The children listened intently, their eyes wide with wonder. They realized that Black Bart was more than just a legend. He was a real person, with real feelings and real struggles. From that day on, the children stopped pretending to be Black Bart. Instead, they started pretending to be Bart, the hero who had saved his sister and dedicated his life to helping others. And Bart knew that he had finally found redemption. He would always remember the lessons he had learned, and he would always strive to be a better person. He was finally free. He was just Bart. Years passed, and Bart and Lily continued to live a happy and fulfilling life in the town. Bart worked hard at Mr. Abernathy's company, earning a decent living and providing for Lily. He also continued to volunteer at the hospital, helping those in need. Lily became a teacher, sharing her love of learning with the children of the town. She was a kind and patient teacher, and the children adored her. The town prospered under their care. Bart used his knowledge to help the townspeople. They had learned to trust him, and he'd learned to trust himself. Silas's threat was long gone. One sunny afternoon, Bart and Lily were sitting on the porch of their cabin, watching the sunset. "We've come a long way, haven't we, Bart?" Lily said, smiling. "We have," Bart replied, putting his arm around her. "We've been through a lot, but we made it through together." "I'm so grateful for everything you've done for me, Bart," Lily said. "You saved my life." "You would have done the same for me," Bart said. They sat in silence for a moment, enjoying the peace and quiet of the evening. The wind rustled through the trees, and the birds sang their evening songs. Suddenly, a young boy ran up to the cabin, his face flushed with excitement. "Bart! Lily!" he shouted. "There's a train robbery happening. The bandits are trying to steal all the money." Bart and Lily looked at each other, their eyes filled with a mixture of surprise and concern. The legend of Black Bart had faded, but the threat of train robbery remained. "What should we do, Bart?" Lily asked. Bart thought for a moment, then smiled. "Let's go help them," he said. Together, Bart and Lily ran towards the train tracks, ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. They were no longer just Bart and Lily. They were heroes, protectors, and symbols of hope for the town. And they were ready to defend their home together. They knew it would be hard, but they had each other, and that's all that mattered. The town was theirs, and they would protect it always. The end.